charity concerts with pop stars with no brains. While the rest of us are throwing out money, driving the buses and digging the trains. You know he was a man for our time. There's one in every crowd if it was allowed. You drowned them young and he was a man for our time. He never spared a dime for you or your kind. When he had made it, he was a man for our time. There's one in every crowd if it was allowed. You drowned them young and he was a man for our time. He never spared a dime for you or your kind. When he had made it,
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, October 2nd, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. At least 50 dead, at least 400 injured in Las Vegas. And there's Republican legislation in the House and Senate that could make the size of such a mass killing even larger. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico is still desperate and under attack by Donald Trump. Nearly 20 million people, including 9 million children, may have just lost their health insurance. Meanwhile, the Trump administration purposely pushing insurance premiums higher in some states. And the Supreme Court term starts today. We will be seeing an ongoing disaster for progressive values. Budget battles on Hill before the Republicans try to cut rich's taxes. And the DOJ wants anti-administration Facebook info. In Europe, Spanish cops assault voters in a Catalonia independence referendum. Back here, Trump thinks he's pretending to be insane. And Tom Price.
A method acting.
Tom Price, when faced with flying coach, decides he's going to quit the administration. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Matt, if you could put up my sound just a little bit more. Thank you. There we go. There we go. So, folks, another one of those days you come in on a Monday and you anticipate talking about one thing, and then over 50 people get murdered and 400 more just mowed down by what appears to be an automatic weapon from the 23rd floor of a hotel. It's at Mandalay Bay. A guy checked in on Thursday of last week. We're not sure exactly, or as of the time that we went on air, we're not sure of exactly what weapons he had, but it was at least 10 assault weapons, or 10 weapons, we should say. At least one of them appears to be, if not an automatic weapon, then a semi-automatic weapon that's been modified in some fashion. And he, on the 4th or 5th day of his stay, decides to smash out a couple of the windows in his hotel room by firing at them, I assume, and sprays gunfire for about 45 minutes to an hour, it appears, into this crowd of nearly 20,000 people. And finally, police were able to bust into his room. They were able to determine which room he was firing from once in the hotel, because the fire alarm, smoke detector in his room, was apparently going off because of all the smoke that was coming off of the weapons he was firing. I guess by the time they got there, he had killed himself. And like I say, as of half hour ago, at least 50 people dead. And there will be zero legislative response to this. Let's not kid ourselves. There will be zero legislative response to this that would in any way inhibit something like this from happening in the future. And there will be all sorts of reasons. It'll be, well, he got this gun illegally anyways, or the gun that he used, even though he had the other 9 guns legally, was gotten illegally, or he modded it illegally, or whatever it is. There's going to be some excuse. You don't know the difference between an AR-15 and some other semi-automatic weapon, so we don't need to have gun control here in this country. There'll be some utterly BS excuse as to why we can't do anything. And there's one reason. There is one reason why we can't. Is because the NRA owns the Republican Party. Lock, stock, and barrel. Period. There is no other reason. There is no other reason. And they need to, the NRA, which is basically just a lobbyist for an industry, need to help their arms dealers make more money. And the fact of their market is the number of people buying guns has been shrinking. And so during the Obama years, they made a ton of money by convincing people that Barack Obama, not people, convincing gun owners that Barack Obama was coming for your guns. And so they sold these gun owners more and more guns. But unfortunately, once Donald Trump gets elected, they can't sell more guns. So what they're doing now is trying to figure out what accessories can we sell to gun owners. And we'll talk about that in a moment, because there's 2 pieces of legislation that had to be put off when Steve Scalise was shot in a mass shooting event. I guess it's they define it by having 3 people shot. They had to put it out. They were gonna try and pass it when but then Steve Scalise got shot, so they had to punt to this week, and they'll punt again, hoping that next time they can thread the needle in between national attention-getting mass shootings, because the number of mass shootings we've had in this country is something like 275 out of the last 270 days. In fact, here we are talking at noon on Monday, 11 hours after Eastern Time, 11 hours after the mass shooting in Vegas, and that's not even the most recent mass shooting. 5 people were shot in downtown Lawrence, Massachusetts last night, 3 dead. And that happened a half an hour after the Vegas one. So, nothing. I hate to be a spoiler alert here. Hate to ruin the suspense. But all of the completely disingenuous hearts and prayers that are sent out, love and prayers or whatever that shit is that the politicians say instead of, oh, we're going to do something about this. Completely meaningless. Means nothing. And here is the actual reality. The actual reality of these things is it's surprising it doesn't happen more often. And I don't care what your concern is as to the impetus of these things. If it's white nationalism, if it's you're concerned about people watching ISIS videos, whether you're concerned about bullying or mental illness or wealth inequality that drives people crazy, whatever it is, the bottom line is we are enabling these impulses by allowing people to have more and more weapons and of greater sophistication. Period. That's it. Maybe this guy, if he did not have access to these weapons, would have smashed a window in that hotel and thrown knives down on the audience. Maybe he would have sat there with a bow and arrow. But the fact of the matter is he would not be able to kill over 50 people. He would not be able to injure over 400 people. And that's the reality of what we're facing. Let's look at some of the video clips here, because this is what's in, what's important about these video clips, and the reason why it's worth showing is because not so much of what you see, but what you hear. Because there's literally legislation that was to be brought up in the House this week that had been put off because Steve Scalise was shot, that is directly implicated by it. I want you to watch this video. I want you to listen. Tell me what you hear. This is a shot of the stage. You tell me what resonates in this video to you. That's the concert. And what do you hear? You hear the machine gun firing. That singer didn't run off the stage because he got hit. It's because he heard the firing of that gun. Continue. More video. Pause it. What just happened there was the fire shots. You start to hear the shooting. People dive for cover. Thousands of people dive for cover. Then when the shooting stops, as denoted by the lack of hearing the firing of the gun, people start to run. You get the drift here of what I'm talking about? Why that's relevant? The Sportsman Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act, which is a broad-ranging gun bill, delayed in June after Steve Scalise was shot, was supposed to be, and this is an October 1 piece, I think, from The Hill, was supposed to be introduced this week. And there's two parts about this. One is it would roll back decades-old restrictions on silencers, gun silencers. The National Firearms Act, which has been a law that's been in effect for literally decades, allows for purchase of silencers in about 42 states in this country only after you've passed a background criminal check, a criminal background check. For the first time in 80 years, if this new legislation is passed, you can buy a silencer by simply finding an unlicensed seller. You can go to like some type of event or buy it from a neighbor. Why does the NRA want this? Because of what I said earlier. When Donald Trump got elected, the NRA could no longer pretend that the federal government was coming after your weapons. And so the dynamic that's been going on for years, which is a smaller number of people buying guns, buying an ever-increasing number of guns, like that guy in Vegas with 10 weapons in his hotel room. What are they going to buy? At one point, you just don't have room for all the guns. I promised myself I would only buy 10, then I bought 12, and then I just really had to shut it down. But wait a second, I can buy silencers now. That's what the NRA is interested in. And the argument that the NRA is making is that we need silencers, which are in fact not really silencers. They're just quieters. They don't silence a gun, they just quiet a gun. We need silencers because it's hurting the ears of hunters. Hunters in this country who have been managing for years without silencers apparently have hearing problems now. Understand, let's play this again. Imagine there is no sound of machine gun fire. These people don't know when this guy is reloading. The singer doesn't know to leave the stage because there's nothing. There's just people in a 20,000 people in an open air parking lot, essentially, just dropping in different parts of the stadium. Nobody knows where it's coming from or what's happening. Play this a little more. People are relaxed. They're standing there. They're huddled. No reason to panic, folks, because we can't hear anything. Now, that's got a silencer on it. So if the people next to you are dropping, that'll give you a clue that there's a guy shooting. Lift your head up because you can't hear anything. It's just outrageous. Just outrageous. I hope the NRA has the balls to bring this up now. Because they're just going to punt and wait until we go another couple of months before there's some national event that happens. People don't pay attention to just mass shootings anymore. You're not going to pay attention to 3 people being shot. But maybe if we get up to like 16, or maybe if they're children, or maybe if they're like an elected representative, perhaps maybe some type of prestigious, celebrity. But if the NRA gets lucky, that won't happen for 4.5 months. And you'll be able to bring it up. Because, look, June, Scalise got shot in June, right? Yep. So July, August, September, 3 months seems to be what you want to aim for, 3.5 months or so. So, if they hope, maybe they could push it up 2 months, although this is 50 some odd people and 400. So you may want to kick it into like 3.5 to 4 months. You just got to hope that from October to February, knock on wood, we don't have a celebrity or mass amounts of children, because 1 or 2 kids, that happens. But if it's a celebrity, and maybe actually you probably need multiple celebrities, but like 3 or 4, because you could probably get away with 1 celebrity being shot.
And also, what kind of celebrity are we talking about?
Right. It would have to be a big celebrity, of course, but maybe a couple of minor celebrities. So I'm sure they're sitting in their NRA headquarters right now with some actuarial table, like knowing, like, okay, generally what we're looking at is 1 national mass shooting event every 4 months. If we get lucky, we get super lucky, the guy will have a Muslim-sounding last name, and then it's not a function of the guns at all. It's just ISIS. And in that case, we probably will need the silencers, because you don't want ISIS to know that we're firing back at them. I mean, that's the reality of it. There's no reason to pretend like hopes and prayers, everybody. Gosh, hopes and prayers. Nothing we could have done about this one. This bill that they're talking about will also, fortunately, loosen restrictions on hunting and shooting on public lands. It also is going to reverse that Obama administration ban on lead tackle and ammunition for most federal lands. Because, the Constitution says not only do you have the right to bear arms, you also have the right to poison the environment while you do it. It's going to amend the Migratory Bird Treaty Act so that you can shoot birds over unharvested cropland. So, get a little lead in your corn. Fortunately, because of the Constitution, it will remove the Endangered Species Act's protections for the Great Lakes gray wolves and ban the purchase of new wetland and bird habitat so our children don't have the ability to see the birds that we have in existence today. And, thank God, it's going to legalize the sale of armor-piercing bullets, so long as the manufacturer writes on the box, made for sporting purposes.
It's a big distinction right there.
I mean, that way, when you're headed out to shoot policemen who are in armor, you're going to stop as you pick up the box, and it'll say, oh, wait, this is only for sporting purposes, not for shooting policemen through their body armor. I'm going to put it back. look,
But maybe that's your sport.
fair enough. And fortunately, if the a-holes in a state, let's say like, I don't know, Nevada, say you don't even need a permit for concealed carry, then you will automatically, because of all the states' rights, be forced to have reciprocity in California, where they don't want people to conceal their weapons without, extensive background checks and permitting process. You just cross the state, well, so they can spread their scourge across the nation. Some of these, I'm convinced, they just sort of layer up. It's like what they do in large corporations. You'll see somebody go on a hiring spree so that when they have to ultimately fire people, there'll be enough people in their department that they can actually just lay off. That's what this. At one point, we're going to have mass casualties where it's like, 200 people are shot, dead.
Let's compromise on the whole silencer thing.
Right. We're going to back off the whole concealed carry on Tuesdays or something. It's
But
disgusting.
all right, we don't support shooting contests in the middle of town squares anymore.
And Donald Trump got up there and recited the Bible to us. I don't think he said the word gun. How easily would it have been? 50 people, maybe 60 people dead, maybe 70. I don't know. Maybe another 100 who are permanently, some fashion, disabled, right? 400 people getting shot, more injured. That's just luck of the draw. What do you think? We're maybe the 49 was the record. What was that back at the nightclub in Florida? What was that? Was that a year ago? Was that 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago. That helped Donald Trump get elected president, arguably.
18
Last summer, 2016.
20 kids in Connecticut. I mean, we're able, we're making America great again, folks. We're gonna bump this shit up. Bump it up to 75 killed next time. We can do this. So, maybe when there's like 200 people killed in a mass shooting event, maybe that's when the NRA says, like, okay, you guys get a free vote to roll back, I don't know, the armored piercing bullets. You get a free vote. We're going to release you on that one. But we're going to need like a 120-day window, maybe a 6-month window, just so to make the adjustment so that we can sell our existing stock at like a 5x price. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. It's a total fucking embarrassment. And there should be lawsuits. They should be sued to shit. There should be people out in front of these gun manufacturers' homes with pictures of the exploding heads that undoubtedly people saw in Las Vegas last night. Where are those right to lifers with their damn pictures? It's just disgusting. It really is just grotesque. But they'll come back in 4 months. They'll pass this silencer law.
Good guy with a silencer.
Yeah.
It's like the end of Scarface.
Oh, it's too bad those 20,000 people weren't all armed, because I'm quite sure if you had armed all those 20,000 people and you all pointed towards the Mandalay Hotel, they might have been able to take him out. Now, there may have been some collateral damage, right? Maybe. By other hotel folks in other hotel rooms. It's going to be great with the silencer. I don't know what we're going to do. How would we play that for our radio listeners, for our podcast listeners? When there's a video from when the guy with the silencer shoots 200 people, 400 people because they don't know to run, how will we play it on our show? We're just going to hear the screams. And people are going to be like, why is all the screaming?
Well, you'll hear the bullet thwack, too, when they hit something.
Maybe if the video is close. But, I mean, if it's in a situation like that, we're just going to hear the screaming, and nobody's going to know why. But it's going to take a while because you're just going to hear like, wait, was there rumbling? What's going on in that corner of the parking lot? Sick.
I'm sure plenty of people even thought that was fireworks. Even
at first, of course. I wasn't going to go on like that because it's just. I mean, frankly, it's I don't know.
Well, what more is there to say? It's like a domestic arms cartel and a party holding everybody hostage. That's it.
You would. I don't understand why these initiatives, like why we don't know the name of the guns used in these things. We keep, talking about it. Why we don't know. Why we don't have a running kill count of each arms manufacturer in this country. It would be a great website you could just set up, like horse races, right? It's just like first one to, 500 killed with their weapon this year. And every time Winchester or Remington, whoever the gun maker, whenever they get a kill, put it up on the big board. Let's see how effective these weapons are at killing. And you get extra points. You take down someone big, maybe you get like a half point if it's just a kid, because you're only dropping somebody who's like 50 pounds, 70 pounds. Maybe you get bonuses if the kid figures out how to kill himself with it. Ease of use. Really amazing. I mean, really amazing. All right, well, I'm just going to end the show. We'll go into the fun half. We'll do the other stuff in the fun half. I don't even feel like talking about this shit.
Ongoing
I mean,
abuse of Puerto Rico in the fun half.
Yeah. And that's the other upshot about this. Donald Trump probably going to send a thank you note to the NRA.
It was getting a little out of hand there. My belligerence, racism, and complete inability to handle anything was getting a little too much of attention. I tried to distract people by threatening war over Twitter with North Korea. Didn't catch traction. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Did the job.
Just mental note, gonna need 50 people killed, 400 injured. Practice the Bible, and then I don't have to worry about major screw-ups.
1 year from now, why can't there be another mass shooting when you need one?
Exactly.
Am I right?
John Kelly's worried about the fallout from the nuclear war in Korea. Like, Trump will just be like, did we get the silencers passed? Because that should be able to... If only we get the silencers.
These are the most despicable people imaginable.
Horrible, horrible human beings. Horrible. Who's the dude who's like sponsoring this legislation? I mean, this should be pretty easy legislation to filibuster in the Senate. Bernie Sanders should get up and filibuster is what he should do.
That's exactly
as a way of
right.
like Jeff Duncan, Republican, South Carolina, of course. Congressman who's pushing this.
I have a compromise silencer bill.
Honestly, that is what they're going around and saying. That is what they're going around and saying. They are saying it is really unfair to refer to this as a silencer bill when all it does is disperse the sound. Just unbelievable.
I only want silencers on certain makes of guns. But we can't just be reasonable anymore.
So this was printed on September 29th. I think it was in I don't know. Maybe the Washington Post. By a guy named Jeff Twigg. He is a Maryland-based computer engineer. In 2007, he was a student at Virginia Tech. There was a campus shooting then. He writes, I was sitting in class at Virginia Tech when the gunman opened fire down the hallway. I remember the sounds of the gunshots. Despite becoming accustomed to the loud masonry work around my classroom that semester, I knew that this was different. The loud and piercing sound of the gunfire let me know that something terrible was happening. My professor quickly braced himself against the door as my classmates and I opened windows from which to escape. It was a 19-foot drop from the windows to the ground. As the gunshots grew louder and louder, I knew it would be dangerous to jump, but even more dangerous to stay put. So I jumped. He jumped because the gunshots grew louder and louder. The sound of the gunshots, folks, made him aware that danger was becoming even more impending. When I hit the ground, I broke both the tibia and fibula in my left leg. I got out. But 32 people were shot and killed that day, including my classmate and professor. Simply put, for me, hearing the sound of gunshots meant the difference between life and death. Well, we're not interested in silencing guns. We're interested in dispersing sound so that it helps hunters using semi-automatic weapons when they're hunting deer.
Since when were these people so concerned about public health?
Since the rate of gun sales dropped. And we need accessories. We've sold all the laser pointer sights that we can sell.
These guys all secretly.
They
all voted for Obama. Wayne LaPierre voted
No
for
shit.
Hillary. Like, oh man, it's going to be bad for business.
Yeah, here's a pair of earplugs. Buy them. Representative Doug LaMalfa, R from Richvale, Butte County, said, it isn't a silencer because it still makes a sound. But what it does is it cuts the percentage of the noise down to make shooting sports a little nicer for people's hearing.
So sick of gun pedantry.
It is disgusting. You can't talk about this because you couldn't put together an AR-15 if you were blindfolded.
Like I would say, like, imagine if Pokemon cards were killing people. You wouldn't expect the legislators to know, like, Charizard from War Turtle before they could legislate something about it.
I have
mean,
another
just
thing
like
that I wouldn't be able to legislate. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hey, man, can't legislate against heroin unless you've tried them all.
That's right. I didn't see anybody pushing.
When did you ever shoot heroin into
Everything
your
great in
anus?
the 80s.
Never, right? So you're trying to
I'd like to
legislate
see
on
Tip
it?
O'Neill and Ronald Reagan freebase a little bit before they push through 3 strikes legislation. Don't knock it till you tried it.
So
It's just so offensive
pathetic
that
and
all these
sad.
people are pushing legislation targeting crack and heroin, and like they have no experience of the culture.
It's true.
They have no experience in that world. They don't know what kind of high different, like a gram might get you. The difference between freebasing, smoking it, or needles. They're just illiterate, but yet they feel like they can legislate.
Can't legislate fraud unless you've perpetrated it.
Excuse me, Senator. Have you ever passed a bad check? Oh, you have. Okay.
Right, yeah, indeed. All right. Going to head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. You know all the other stuff. I don't feel like doing it today. We'll see you in the fun half. We are back. Sam Seder. The fun half. I'm in a bad mood. I will try and lighten up just a little bit anyways. But God fucking damn it. I mean, how just... God. How stupid is this country? Just Unbelievable. Let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 201 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's up, Sam? It's Max from New York.
Hello, Max. What's on your mind?
Hey, so I'll make it quick because I know there's a lot going on today, and you're not in a good mood. But this is something that's been on my mind for a while. Are you familiar with like Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience?
I am familiar with Joe Rogan a little bit, his podcast, but he's one of those guys I used to play softball with back in Boston 25 years ago.
Oh shit, for real. So the guy gets about like 16. He gets like 16 million downloads a month.
Yeah, no, he's huge.
And yeah, can I just read you a quick list of names that he's had on his podcast?
I know they're huge names, and in fact, I tried to go on his show last time I was out in L.A. I probably should have tried to go through Marin, because I know he's sort of like. I mean, he's not the most unreasonable guy, but he strikes me as a guy who's sort of like quasi-libertarian, not terribly, he's rather impressionable, the sense I get.
He's getting worse and worse.
I mean, he's launched. I don't know if launched is the right word, but like Steven Crowder, Milo, Gavin McInnes, like all of those guys, their trajectory skyrocketed after they went on his show.
That does not surprise
me.
me.
He's also had on, that Charles C. Johnson that did the Got News?
Yeah. He's
had Jordan Peterson on there. He's had Sargon, Sam Harris. Like, I just, why people think it's dumb, right? Because, like, he's a comedian, blah, blah, blah. But, something that I've noticed in an election that was this close was, like, every little thing mattered.
Oh,
and, like,
definitely.
He had, all through the election, it was Hillary, she bumped her head, and she had, he never said Parkinson's, but he talked about her health all the time. Like, no one seems to talk about him. He seems to get, like, this blanket pass.
Yeah.
You can't find a lot of criticism online about him.
I think,
what was that? I'm sorry.
No, I think part of the reason was for a period. So I used to listen to his show a bit more, and I just honestly it's very repetitive. So I kind of,
yes.
But like it's all like, kids are too sensitive at college, take DMT, and here's like a MMA or comedy thing. But with Sam Harris, he treats Sam Harris like a guru, but I think he got a little bit of space when he had people like Milo on, because he would usually devote part of those interviews to kind of holding them accountable on certain specific areas. So I think he sort of created some space for himself. And then he would, and then he'd have on Abby Martin a lot and kind of like play both sides of that divide. But I think in the last year he's gotten much more solidly in the right, basically.
And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what the real problem is that we don't have anything like this on the left. We really don't. Like, you don't, the level of entrepreneurship that's involved in that, because these are people, all those people you mentioned, right? Before they go on these shows, they are basically unknown to media outside of like the YouTube world and the podcast world. Like, I can tell you that most academics, the genuine sort of thinkers, public intellectuals in this country, have no idea who Sam Harris is. They don't know him. He's done nothing that would attract the attention of serious academics. I can assure you this, and I'm not saying it as a way of shitting on Sam Harris. It's simply a fact. And
No, I get you.
Like Noam Chomsky, apparently, like Harris, like desperately tried to debate Noam Chomsky to the point of like hectoring him with these emails that Chomsky sort of like politely responded to. And then Harris, was so desperate to be seen as an actual academic intellectual that he published the emails against the agreement he had with Chomsky, which is, incredibly unethical in any of the realms in which he purports to function, Sam Harris. But that's why when I say he's a charlatan, that's another example of how much of a charlatan he is. He's so desperate for celebrity. And so they go on all of each other's shows as a way of promoting each other. And you see some of that like in the comedy world, but the stakes are much different and much less, right? I mean, it's all about marketing on some level in the comedy world, and that's fine. But that's what it's really about on the right. They do it very well. And and that's what's going on there, so that they bring their audiences to him, and he brings their audience to, he ports his audience to them, and that's the way it happens.
He has a huge audience.
He has a huge audience, indeed. Yeah.
And could I just one last thing about it is that, he hawks bullshit supplements. Like if you look at like nootropics and that company that he has a stake in on it, like all of that stuff, when you actually look at it, it's bullshit. And that's bad enough. But then he has on these people that purport to be doctors. I mean, he had one woman on last month that literally, I'm telling you, I listened to all 3 hours. She said, and I'm not making this up, you can go check, that you can substitute antipsychotic medications with exercise. And and zero pushback by him. And then he has all these other quote-unquote dietitians that push this paleo shit. Like, you can go on a paleo diet and die if you're not listening to your doctors and whatnot. So I just think, like, with his huge audience, like, it's very, very dangerous. And, like, again, no sticks to him at all.
I think that's part of the reason he's
now, wait a second.
Is calling him out.
What you need, it seems to me, is just being a little bit more tenacious with this. And we actually have a wonderful product that we wanted to introduce to you. I'm holding here in my hand. It is a turmeric-based product, but has been turmeric.
Sure, let's do that.
It's a turmeric-based product, which I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean,
no, but I do think
we need some version of that.
But I think
on the left.
But I think part of the reason he gets people in is actually because of those types of shows. I mean, people are interested in the entertainment world and in, for lack of a better word, like self-help. I mean, that's how he built a community, right? Yeah. So he could be using it for
that's how he started.
Terrible purposes, but that might be another thing that like people in left like maybe there needs to be a smart I gotta
start working out and then we're gonna see this
like
show
maybe
change
people
a
who
little
do
bit.
shows like this need to start taking on a bit of a wider range of subjects, because I think that's why he has that audience loyalty. And then the other thing is that it's the Dave Rubin principle. I mean, doing those shows on like some dumb college campus controversy is the easiest, no prep.
It also, to be honest with you, it helps to be in L.A. I mean, it helps to be in L.A. Sure. You're just going to get a different sort of level of access to celebrities.
Right.
I mean, our Fridays here would be very different if we were in L.A. doing a show at noon, L.A. time.
Come to my place. Let's sell supplements.
We'll talk to you later. Appreciate the call.
We'd all have
Thank you.
teeth whitening jobs.
No shit. I gotta get on that actually. But I have a fake tooth in the front. Yeah, so that would not apparently, like the doctor said to me years ago,
out of whack, huh?
You can't do whitening because you calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, it's John from San Antonio. Good afternoon, Sam.
Hi, John. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the Quinnipiac poll that came out in June. They said, do you support or oppose regulation requiring background checks for gun buyers? 94% support it. And so, if we're living in a functioning democracy, this should be happening.
But John, hold on. Here's the point. And this is a point that I made for a long time. I think to a certain extent to Cliff's chagrin, because obviously this is something that Cliff has been working on for years. The level of intensity of that 94% support is I don't want to say wafer thin, but there's just no intensity there. I mean, if you were to rate where that it sits on the spectrum of people's concerns, they would end up putting that down probably around like number 10. For that 6%, they would put that at number 1. And that's just the reality. That's just the reality of American politics. It is about the money with the NRA, but it's also about the level of intensity that people who support your right to buy a silencer and some type of semi-automatic weapon have. Very often, that's all they have.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess it's a difference between, like, it says, if you support or oppose requiring background checks. Now, that's something different that was talked about a lot after Sandy Hook, as opposed to, do you oppose or support stricter gun laws, to where it's much more. I mean, it's still 54% support, 42 oppose. Stricter gun laws in that one poll. In other polls, it's more like 50-50. So, I mean, it's just background checks in general. But, I mean, you're absolutely right about the Republican Party being bought off, And this doesn't just apply to guns. I mean, obviously you know this. I mean, you talk about this all the time. Wall Street owns them, or any special interest who gives them money. Just look at how they approach climate change. It's all based on money. Look at the Jones Act. Oh, we can't put the Jones Act because in place because the shipping industry would get mad. Trump actually said that. You know, it's so pathetic, and that's the reason I'm so focused on elections, because this is never going to change until we get sane people elected. So, Nina Turner and Jim Hightower are conducting a Revolutionize Texas tour. It starts in Austin on Friday with a fundraiser. On Saturday morning, there's a rally in Houston called From Inequality to Solidarity, a regional meeting organization dealing with Harvey and the impacts of that. Then on Saturday night, our Revolution is going to be having a rally here in San Antonio supporting Medicare for All.
Are you going to these? Are you going to these, John?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go on to the one in San Antonio. I am, definitely. And
I wish I had a Majority Report T-shirt to send you. We're still working on our new logo.
You can make
We're about to roll those out. You can make your own.
Those events will happen unless my wife gets there first. Nina Turner's got a target on her head.
Okay, then on Saturday they're doing the North Texas thing in Dallas, and then Tyler in East Texas on Sunday night.
Is Texas going to be in play, John? Is Texas really? Is Texas going to be in play or what? 2020.
No, it's not going to be in play in 2020. But I mean, as more people move here, as income inequality, still is in greater force than ever, and so, I mean, more people are moving from California, and that's in other parts of the country, and that's changing politics in Texas. It's not the people who've, lived here all their lives. It's the people who are migrating to Texas, and I think it's the same way in Georgia also, in North Carolina, and in Florida. And so, I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to. I know a lot of people at the Our Revolution meeting were saying, oh, my God, all these people are moving in and we can't afford rent anymore and everything. I said, well, that happened in New York and San Francisco and in Boston and Seattle, 25 years ago. I mean, it's always been that way. Those are where super achievers lived. But I mean, with the inequality, it's gotten even worse. I think it's kind of cascaded in the 21st century.
Yep.
But also, I want to promote Rick Trevino, who's an Our Revolution candidate running for the 23rd district. In Texas. That's one of the swingiest districts. Right now I have it number 8 on my list of the most flippable districts. And so he's got 3 other Democrats he's running against. Jay Hollings, I guess, would probably be the guy who just got into the race. He's promoted by the Castro brothers. But Rick is a 27-year-old history teacher at a inner city school, and he really is a great speaker. And
Hey, John.
He already ran.
John, all right, Trevino, give us the website where people can go check him out.
Okay. I haven't been to his website yet, but I would imagine. Let me.
Well, if you want to do a plug for somebody, you gotta give like a place where people can actually take action.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean that's true.
Now, John, let me ask you this also, as you are looking for that site. Do we have the site? Michael will find it. When we get the new website going, which should be any day now, I think we got it. Rick Trevino. He's a teacher.
Right.
Teacher.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. We've got
Right.
it. We'll put it up on. We'll put a link on the site. Do you want a page to put up on the back end of our site with your picks, with your ratings?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. I mean, like I said before, my time is kind of limited because I'm a caregiver to my 93-year-old mother. But I mean, I could.
Yeah,
I mean,
you just need to put it up, and
mean,
as you change it, you send me an email, and we'll update it.
yeah, that sounds good. Definitely.
All right, great. Well, we'll let you know when we get there. I
Thanks,
appreciate
John.
the call.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, let's get to some sound. What's that? Okay. I don't know if I can jump right into like the Puerto Rico stuff, because I was just here's the thing. Donald Trump, as horrible as he is, he's horrible. He's only 10 months into his presidency, so I don't know if we've seen even remotely close to the worst of it. He's a horrible human being. But in terms of like what we're looking at in terms of policy, right? People should not forget. And for some people, it's like you weren't old enough to be aware of. The Bush administration was much more effectively evil. And I mean, just horrible for human beings and humanity. Killing hundreds of thousands of people for the purpose of, I don't know, 15 years later, you can look and see to what end, to make it possible for more killing to continue there. Freedom does not seem to be breaking out in the Middle East, just FYI. We do, however, still maintain some hegemony in that region. We do have more permanently based troops there. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. I'm sure the idea of us having a permanent cadre of troops there in the event that we need to go in and secure some of that Saudi oil, I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. I don't want to be cynical. It's just like, well, we tried for freedom. It didn't work out. Hundreds of thousands of people. Defense Department numbers. Defense Department numbers are, I think, like 150,000 civilians killed because of us. That's the Defense Department number. Those are low-end numbers. But I don't want to haggle here. Maybe it was 150,000, maybe it was 500,000. We created about 4 million refugees. 2 internally, 2 externally. Never mind the chances of us probably also enhancing a serious civil war by driving some of the worst, by allowing for free reign what happens in that western province. I mean, on and on we could go. And Donald Trump may yet get to be as horrible as George Bush from a policy standpoint. And it's very hard to sort of rate human beings, right? Like, because I don't know either one of them. I've never had the misfortune of meeting either one of those two.
You can rate.
And I'm very happy to go through my entire life not having to come even remotely close to either one of those human beings. But Donald Trump is horrible in a completely different way. And a total scumbag. Total just scumbag. Just a despicable human being. Separate from how bad of a president he is, as a human being, he's just despicable, disgusting human being. And I mean, it's really coming out in this, in his utter. There just seems to be a complete lack of urgency about Puerto Rico. And then just look at some of the tweets that Donald Trump has posted about Puerto Rico. We've done a great job with the almost impossible situation in Puerto Rico. Outside of the fake news or politically motivated ingrates want everything to be done for them when it should be a community effort. 10,000 federal workers now on the island doing a fantastic job. Such poor leadership ability by the mayor of San Juan and others in Puerto Rico who are not able to get their workers help. They want everything to be done for them, like I said, when it should be a community effort. What a just a despicable human being. I honestly, as much as I'm sure this guy has suffered mentally over the years to turn out so warped, you really want that moment when he departs this world to be protracted and painful. Now, maybe
for him,
natural, yeah,
not for the rest of us.
Not for the rest.
That's his whole mastery, is taking us into.
I don't
his
know.
pain.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe the guy will serve his term, and maybe he'll get reelected. Hopefully not. And then, as an old man, he'll be sitting somewhere, and I don't know what the most prolonged, difficult way to pass away might be, but that's the one that I hope he gets.
I agree. What would be really funny is when,
and I hope it's on live television.
I'm looking forward to his post-presidential initiatives, some catastrophe happens, and Obama and Clinton and Bush, and if, God willing, or excuse me, Allah willing, Carter's still alive, and they sort of meet and do one of their we're coming together, and even George Bush Sr. Wait, or did he pass away?
No.
Okay, well, excuse me. But then, we're going to come together to help, some island that got hit by a hurricane or something. And Trump will just be like, yeah, I don't know. I might give them Trump branded water for money.
Right.
Everything will just be an ongoing and endless con.
We're having trouble finding the crates with the words Trump on it. Yeah. So the water's going to get there soon. All right, look, here is, it's quite clear. There was a report by reporter Abby Phillip. We asked White House and FEMA to tell us if Trump was briefed between 9/22 and 9/25, that's September 22nd and September 25th, by anyone directly involved in hurricane response. They refused. Now, understand that there is absolutely, it is completely standard practice for the White House and for agencies to announce the president has met with X, Y, or Z to go over this situation. They announce it in real time. They certainly, I think you would be very hard-pressed to find any instance in the past where the White House and the agency refused to disclose this in the question of a natural catastrophe. In fact, they usually release it out there as a way of indicating how seriously the administration is taking it to provide comfort for people in a disaster area and for the rest of the country. So it's like, hey, if we have a problem, we know that the White House is engaged. They wouldn't announce it, and it would be irrational for you to assume anything other than the fact that there was no briefing. The White House was completely disengaged from this effort. Here is retired Lieutenant Russell on air on CNN talking about the relief effort. Listen to what he says.
Key enablers right now to change things here in 24 hours, give everybody a tank of gas so the working people can get back to work and get the trucks moving, get the stores open, get the streets clean. Until that happens, we're at a standstill, and that would be my recommendation.
What is your reaction to the president's tweets this morning?
I have no reaction. The mayor's living on a cot, and I hope the president have a good day at golf.
Yeah, there you go. Donald Trump was golfing. Do we have him awarding? Do we have that video of him dedicating the President's Golf Tournament Award to the 1.5 million Americans, the 1.5 million Americans who do not have drinking water? And Donald Trump's response to the 1.5 million Americans who don't have drinking water is to dedicate the President Cup's trophy to the victims. Listen to this guy. Can we watch this? Here's Donald Trump coming up to give a speech. This is this weekend.
Thank you very much, everybody. I just have to say, these people, they're special people. They are born and then they work very hard on this incredible talent, and they really are. They're very talented folks, and really, they are people that have good hearts. So I want to congratulate the internationals on
he's here at the golf tournament, President's Cup.
On behalf of all of the people of Texas and all of the people of, if you look today and you see what's happening, how horrible it is, but we have it under really great control, Puerto Rico and the people of Florida who have really suffered over this last short period of time with the hurricanes. I want to just remember them, and we're going to dedicate this trophy to all of those people that went through so much, that we love, a part of our great state, really a part of our great nation.
Yeah, you know what I love is that guy right behind him. You see that? Smoking the big fat cigar he puts into his mouth as soon as he says it.
USA, wow, did you play well?
Unbelievable.
White people are trash.
What a just an utter scumbag.
Yes.
What an utter scumbag.
What do we do in this country?
It's unbelievable.
He's the absolute worst that humanity has to offer.
Let's I don't know if you saw this clip too. I mean, look, it's important, people, that you keep Puerto Rico in your mind. This just had a mass shooting, of course, and it's already too easy for people on the mainland to forget about Puerto Rico. Not people who have family there. And some of the networks still have people down there. Here is Representative Luis Gutierrez. He's on CNN. He is down in Puerto Rico, San Juan. Just listen to. He can barely keep it together because of what he's seen down there, I think.
So what's the reality on the ground?
The reality on the ground is the one that your reporters are telling the American people. They're handing out maybe a bottle of water and one meal to a family of 5 or 6. And that was after 8 days. And some towns, not even that. I think it isn't a good job. It's a disgraceful job. The United States of America is the most powerful, wealthiest country in the world. And this is not a response that's demonstrative of our power and our wealth. And I'm tired of the president always talking about how much it's going to cost. It's costing lives, Mr. President, of children and the elderly and the infirm. And we should begin an operation to also evacuate people from this island, especially the elderly, especially those that have sicknesses, until they can return to an island to rebuild it. But right now, I think we also need to talk to them. I was with the mayor of San Juan. We sat down with the director of FEMA this afternoon. Here's good news. Tomorrow, all of the hospitals in San Juan will be getting a regular supply of petroleum so that they can keep in operation. He promised me that tomorrow there'll be 1.7 million meals delivered to Puerto Rico and 2.5 million liters of water. And I begged and implored him, because I don't want to hold responsible the employees on the front lines. The command has to come from Washington, D.C., from the commander-in-chief. And I would hope that as he likes to talk about the fire and the fury of the armed forces of the United States, that he bring them to Puerto Rico with that same fire and fury to save the people of Puerto Rico from what is going to be a disaster here in this island.
I mean, this is ongoing. Here is a tweet from a guy named Nelson Rosario. I just sent it to you, Matt. He's just some dude on Twitter who writes, "My dad lives on the island. I shared the president's response with him this morning." He's writing this 2 days ago, Saturday. He wanted me to share this one anecdote in response. For context, my dad's helping with rebuilding right now, and he has friends in the government elected and appointed on the island. After I told him what the president said, he went quiet and he said, "Wow." A second later, he says, "I'm going to share one detail with you. One, there's a medical center down here, and everyone that was in the intensive care unit died. Everyone. That's just one detail." And this is only going to get worse. 1.5 million people without drinking water. American citizens. Now, what do you do if you're faced with this and this reality, and you work for a place, let's say, like Fox News, right? I mean, there's a reason why Donald Trump doesn't want to respond, doesn't care. Just like there's no one around him in the White House who really gave a crap. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's just like there's no one in his administration who has any sensitivity to this, because there's nothing in it for him electorally. And there's no one in his administration who has any type of relationship with Puerto Rico. And if you just start with the assumption that there's nothing that Donald Trump, or any president for that matter, but particularly Donald Trump does, that is in some way, that is not transactional, it's not providing a direct benefit, and there's no one in the White House who has no relationship to Puerto Rico. I mean, that's how you get into this situation. Just no, yeah, it'll be fine, whatever. It's not that pressing. We want to save our resources for something that is. And what if you do, if you're one of those people who does? Can you imagine if you found yourself in that administration, somehow you had some passing interest in what was going on in Puerto Rico? Maybe because it was your brand a little bit to sort of care a little bit, supposedly, about this stuff. But you worked in the administration. What would you do? How would you sort of walk that line? Well, Geraldo Rivera has that situation, but with Fox, right? He's the one who's sort of like the House liberal over there, the one who actually, supposedly cares about this stuff. So he goes down there. How does he, in some way, sort of maneuver around that? Well, here, play this clip of him interviewing the mayor.
And apparently he hasn't been getting it, or he hasn't been watching the news.
But are people dying? I've been traveling around. I don't see people dying. I spoke to the doctors. They saw 53 patients, and they had a person who was septic, but nobody dying. I wonder.
Well, dying is a continuum, right? If you don't get fed for 7-8 days and you're a child, you are dying. If you have 11 people like we took out of a nursing home severely dehydrated, you are dying.
Do you wish you had characterized that a little more?
It is. I said it the way it is. I don't have to characterize anything in any way that is not the reality. That is the truth. He who has eyes will be able to see it. He who has an open heart will be able to feel it. Those that prefer to be blinded to injustice, that's their issue. I have no time for that.
How much of that is politics? The fact that you and the president are different parties and...
Well, I'm not a member of the Democratic Party. I have democratic values, shared values with the Democrats. Senator Marco Rubio's office came here. He's not a Democrat. General Buchanan, don't take the word of a 5-foot-tall, 120 pounds mayor.
You're plenty big enough,
General
Mayor.
Buchanan said yesterday, we don't have what it takes to deal with this situation. So don't take my word for it. Take the general's word for it.
All right, that's part one of my interview.
Yeah, that's part one of my interview, and it's my way of making sure that I still have a place to come back to when I get back to the mainland, and Fox News wants to continue to work with me. I brought up the skepticism about the mayor about a city on an island with millions of people, half of whom, 1.5, who don't have drinking water. Were you being a little hyperbolic? Don't have electricity. There's 3 dialysis shops that are open out of like 20 on the island. No transportation for those people. Unbelievable. Just disgusting. All right, speaking of disgusting, here's Senator Ron Johnson. This is amazing. He gets asked a question. He's at, he's in Wisconsin. He goes to some high school. I guess it was called New Berlin West High School. And a high school student gets up and asks him a question about health care. Ron Johnson sets everybody straight in the room, just so you know. So there's no doubt.
Senator Johnson, I understand that there's a big movement right now to try to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Do you personally consider healthcare as a privilege or a right?
I think it's probably more of a privilege. Do you consider food a right? Do you consider clothing a right? Do you consider shelter a right? What we have as rights is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Past that point, we have the right to freedom. Past that point, everything else is a limited...
Pause it. So he's just enumerated a non-enumerated right but doesn't think the right to like have food or clothing or shelter or health care has anything to do with the pursuit of happiness. I'm just one of those happy-go-lucky people who live in Wisconsin without any clothes, without any food, without any shelter, without any health care. What this guy is dumb as dirt. And a scumbag.
And a trust fund baby. He grew up in enormous wealth.
Well, but that was his privilege.
His right.
My birthright.
My birthright, literally. I had the good sense.
Continue.
Is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Past that point, we have the right to freedom. Past that point, everything else is a limited resource that we have to use our opportunities given to us so that we can afford those things. So the minute and this was actually Senator Rand Paul talked about this on the floor of the Senate. He's a doctor. He said the minute you consider health care a right, well, who's going to satisfy that right? And those people that have the skill to satisfy that right, what does that make them if they're forced to provide you with that rightful product or service? So no, I think it's obviously a privilege to have food and shelter. And what we need to do as public officials is try and have our economy healthy so that we have as much prosperity as possible so that we can actually increase the resources available for as high a quality and as highly accessible healthcare as we possibly can.
I'd like to see him run on that platform of like, you're lucky you got food. I would have also liked to see the look on the high school student's face where he's like, what?
There's a quote, I got to dig it up, but it was an old like French writer, but it was something to the effect of like, freedom is such a great gift for us all that the rich man and the pauper both have the freedom to sleep under a bridge.
Yes.
They both have that great, magnificent right. I mean, it also reminds me, have you guys seen Comrade Detective on Amazon?
Comrade Detective?
It's really quite funny. It's actually, it's shot as if it's an 80s buddy cop show set in Romania and the Soviet Union and then dubbed into English. It's funny, but I won't get too much into the digression, but they have these great lines that they would from their from sort of like Soviet propaganda. But there's this one where they're like, wait a second, in America, they fight so you can believe in a fairy tale figure in the sky, but not for somebody to have health care? That's sick. And you're sitting there, you're like, yeah.
That quote was Anatole France, and the actual quote was he said, the law in its majestic equality forbids the free man and the rich man and the poor man from sleeping under bridges.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, there it is.
Wait, are you doing that from memory? Oh, you're just like looking at you. I'm like, where is he reading that? That's what we do with our new hires. You gotta. That's the way I do it. I'm just like, let's hear your quotes, man.
We should pretend that all three of us just have total photographic memory for every relevant political quote imaginable, just to really terrify new people. No, we don't look things up here. Is that going to be a problem?
651 area code. Who's this?
Hi, it's the Chris Lapaco.
Chris Lapaco. The Chris Lapaco. What's on your mind, man?
Yes. The shooting.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I mean, you brought it up a little bit, but all these right-wing nut jobs who want everyone to have guns at them at all time, like you said, if everyone turned around and started pointing at the hotel and shooting, like, how does that solve any of the problem? By the way, another thing that was going on at the time last night, I was doing a video at the time it happened, so I just went live and started playing the scanners and stuff. The police were getting reports of multiple gunmen all over the place.
Yeah, I heard that.
Right, so they thought like there were like 5 or 6 different gunmen or whatever going to different hotels and shooting people, and everybody was running away from those incidents that weren't actually happening. So that would just obviously make the situation worse if all of these trigger-happy nut jobs are running around looking for a shooter who doesn't exist, and then people are seeing that guy and assuming he's the shooter. And it just gets worse and worse from there.
Yep.
And they're drunk in casinos. So anyway, enough about that. Oh, also Dan Bilzerian. I don't know if people know who he is. He's a guy with a beard. And
he has a rich dad that funds his lifestyle. Like, that's like a very manly lifestyle, like, kind of guy. He's in private jets with naked women on Instagram a lot.
Jesus.
Yeah, I never got like what his appeal was or how he got to be what he is. Like, he's just famous and rich, and I'm like, I want that. Seems pretty easy. But he was at the concert last night too, and so that he had some video out there, and like he saw someone get shot in the face. He's like, I was gonna go run and grab my gun and come back, but they're pushing everyone back. I'm like, dude, oh man, I wish he would have went and grabbed a gun. But anyway, yeah. We need to do something about gun control, but it's not going to happen. Oh, yeah, and this guy is a white guy, by the way. That's what I really called about here. So he's been identified.
Yeah.
If you guys want to say his name, you can. I won't. So anyway,
I don't
white
feel
dude,
too
though.
strongly
So
about
it. Yeah, it's a false flag. So since it's a white guy, but that's what everyone was saying in the comments yesterday. And I'll just hang up after this.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a Muslim guy, then obviously it's a true 100% terrorist attack, and we have to act on that. But if it's a white guy, then everyone tries to say it's
all
an
cool.
inside job. At least in my comments. So anyway, bye.
All right, bye. Eesh.
Look at that story I sent you. Should at least top line it.
The let's see. Administration is set to issue regulations that would significantly reduce oversight and transparency on small arms exports to governments and private business in about 36 countries. Ugh. Great. Got to improve business. We don't have a black guy in presidency anymore, so NRA needs some help. Calling from 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, this is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. How are you?
Yeah. Well, I replaced my antipsychotic medications about 3 months ago with exercise and organic cinnamon.
Hey,
I think that's an important.
How's that working out?
Well, I'm just saying you don't want to forget the cinnamon. So.
I bet.
I really appreciate that John from San Antonio is pro gentrification. That was my favorite part of his call.
There you go. Got to get over it. Got to get over it, he says.
Yeah. So your
fucking
rent's
man
too high. It's always been that way. Anyways, I wanted to reiterate your big fuck you to all the actually gun people who pop their heads up around these times to say things like silencers don't actually silence the shots, and things like that. I can't anymore with these. Well, somebody I saw said, "Oh, here come the anti-gun people," but if you look at like Oklahoma City, where a dude blew up a building with a truck full of fertilizer, everybody was on board with, hey, we should probably like keep track of this fertilizer because it can blow up buildings. And so nobody had any problem with passing regulations where, if I tried to go buy a truckload of this shit, I'd get on some sort of list because, of course. And we just have this weird obsession with guns. I also want to say, I know we're not allowed to say this, but fuck you to fucking hunting gun culture. We have to kiss these people's asses all the time, but hunting is disgusting. And if you want to go out and murder animals like a monster, then okay, fine, but you should be on a list. I'm sorry, but we should know who has guns, and we should know where they're at, and they shouldn't be able to buy so many rounds and so many guns. It's insane. This is just pure insanity. And I just don't have any more patience for these people. I live in gun country, hunting country, and I see people with those My Family bumper stickers almost every day, and it's an AK-47 and a whatever other gun. on the back of their, lifted F-350 or whatever that they're using to get groceries in. Our country is just.
Sometimes you need that 350 if you're getting if you're pulling a big payload, you're gonna want the 350.
Actually, the F-350 isn't for a big payload, Sam. I don't know. We have to be willing to confront the sickness that we have. It's an addiction. It's it is a mental health crisis, and the mental health crisis is that we've got people who think that their family is made up of a bunch of stupid guns, and the reaction to anything like this should automatically be, how do we regulate the tool of mass destruction? And the fact that we can't even put the first foot on the floor and get that discussion started is really, really disturbing. But,
yeah.
Anyways, I know you were kind of off of that, and so sorry to bring you back on it. But
no, I mean it's just so frustrating. Apparently, we're up to now 55 dead, and I don't know how many injured. I mean, it's just it's just insane.
I don't know. To me, the hunting thing. I grew up around it. I've got guns, and my family had guns and all that shit that I know we have to preface everything with. But the fact that some dudes that want to go out and shoot animals are the reason why we can't have a
ostensibly. Ostensibly, right? I mean, it's just like
right.
it's not.
No, I understand.
It's fake.
I
It's all.
understand
It's just an excuse. It's just like I imagine there are some hunters out there who are like, boy, this gun is loud, and these headphones, these earmuffs that I got to wear to keep it from being. They're digging into my ear a little bit. It'd be nice if I could buy a silencer. I'm sure there's a couple of those people, but I have a feeling that's not what's driving this.
No, but I mean, if you go to like a gun show, it's all John Bircher literature, and,
right.
and they're handing out all this stuff. And the problem is, Washington's 4th congressional district, John from San Antonio will tell you the last time we had a Democrat was Jay Inslee, who's now governor, in I think 1992, and he got voted out because he voted for the assault rifle ban. And we haven't had a Democrat since, and not just have we not had a Democrat, but like Democrats are not on the map.
In New York State, if you go up New York State, I mean, and this is in New York, and granted, north of of Manhattan, you're talking about the majority of the state, which is a huge state. For 5 years there was a lot of repeal the SAFE Act, which is like very tame gun regulation, just very tame, and it was the most animating factor. And frankly, Zephyr Teachout, I'm sure, hurt by that up in the 19th congressional district. Like the guns have just it's weird.
So I know the NRA is out there, and they're giving a lot of money, and all those things matter. But there's also a culture of it
that's what I'm saying.
The NRA has permeated the people, and those people come
it's an
out
intensity.
And vote. And
it's an intensity that is
and
not there on the side of people who, there's a real intensity there. But
hey, sorry, I called you the B word the other day.
That's all right. I'm not sure I remember what.
Sorry,
whoa! Hold up. What happened? What happened?
I called Sam the B word.
What's the B word again?
Why don't you spell it out there, trooper?
Well, Sam insinuated that I wasn't a real lawyer.
Oh,
I did not do that. Somebody else.
He's at the front line of immigrants' rights in this country, and you sit here in coastal privilege and
I
question
did not.
his law degree?
I did not question his law degree. There
There
were
was
people
definitely some.
There was an IM that
elitism
questioned
in
whether or
his
not he was
comments.
licensed to practice. He apparently has a number.
Well, it's nothing you would know about.
He has a number.
Non-attorney.
That's right.
Sam.
Well, but I mean, maybe I could have the same, legitimacy as he does by going 0473, bitch.
Oh.
And then I just hung up on him. That's what he did to me the other day. He called up with his.
He called his bar number
Yeah.
and called
It's
you.
like
bitch.
049331.
I hope
bitch.
that has been noted for your best of.
Yeah. We're gonna post all of the calls we get from our callers who just yell out their bar license number.
I
Essentially.
love the fusion of this show of of sort of genuine high-mindedness and even a certain pretension, if we're being honest. My bar code, bitch.
If you're being honest, yes. And then like the Baba Booey quality of people
a certain Baba
throwing
Booey
out
quality.
their bar registration numbers.
You think I'm more pretentious than you?
Do I think you're more
Yeah.
pretentious than me?
Really?
Well, I'm not saying me. I don't think so. Teacher BB, how did the mayor of San Juan not punch Rivera in the face? On a more positive note, the sermon at my Catholic church this week, the priest equates respect for life, not just of opposition to abortion, but also opposition to the death penalty, support for access to health care, and a clean environment.
To start.
I think
Input
Catholics
switch.
are like the only segment that actually still does that.
Input switch. AM, our crew, we're still trying to get our podcast, Input Switch, off the ground, and we've been having a hell of a time getting some attention. But after today, it feels more important than ever to add our voices to the chorus of people saying fuck you to the firearms manufacturers in the NRA and the effing MAGA brains who think these atrocities we have to endure for the sake of their effing hobby. Melt their guns and their silencers. They can keep the metal. Let them build another effing statue. By the way, here's a link to our SoundCloud page. If you want to tweet it out or whatever. Input switch. I will send that to you after the show. I love Sarah Palin. Sandoval called the attack unprecedented. Was he on this planet when the polls happened last year? We have to be clear. When right-wingers say don't politicize the issue, it means don't talk about our problems and the real-world implications of policy. On a lighter note, it's nice to see Michael actually show up to work today. Sam, I empathize with your frustration with these PC liberal policies. Michael's clearly a poor worker, but you can't fire him because he's transgender who probably self-identifies as a fire truck or something. I'm not sure I get that. On the gun thing, I sympathize with your frustration. But in times like these, we need you for your failing comedy now more than ever. By the way, in the Puerto Rico thing, Trump is just saying something the right-wingers have said in the past. Remember Glenn Beck talking about New Orleans and FEMA? He was a never-Trumper, by the way. Indeed. Ryan from Ohio, I prefer my doctor to have all the same ailments I do. How can you treat IBS if you've never even shit your pants? Letter carrier. Although there are regular shootings in Lawrence, Mass, last evening's this morning event was in Lawrence, Kansas on Massachusetts Avenue. Oh, is that right? Hey. Lawrence, Kansas. Wow.
Facts matter.
Yeah, let's put an addendum if we clip that. I, for one, am sick and tired of cultural Marxist Nazis suppressing free and fair exchange of gunfire. You know what's effed up? I saw active shooter at Mandalay Bay in my newsfeed last night. I ignored it and went back to bed because this shit is so fucking common. Solidarity with Rojava. I understand the regulations do reduce gun homicides and suicides, but given our white supremacist police state, isn't it not necessarily best to want only the pigs to have these weapons? You know, the bottom line is that ship has sailed. I mean, I'm sorry. There's just, I think the best way to get rid of these weapons from our government is to get rid of them, just broadly speaking. Galaxin, intro today brought me to tears. I haven't slept a wink since I first saw news of the shooting happening in real time. I've been awake for almost 24 hours now. The night before, I got 3 hours sleep because I was reading up on Trump's hatred of Puerto Ricans. I'm a teacher, and the first group of kids I saw this morning when I got to work were fifth graders who were killing one another with finger guns. I clicked on them probably more harshly than I should have and asked them to stop if they hadn't seen the news. Another teacher heard me and asked if I was okay. I said, not really. He put his hand on my shoulder and said he understood and said maybe I should take the day off. I took his advice As a person who is alive today, I feel like a dick taking a mental health day, but seriously, I just can't today. Can't imagine how many other people aren't there being pushed to their limits by the current state of our world. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. Thank you for you and your crew for what you do. Thank you. 92%, 2 weeks. Sam, you can't sue gun manufacturers. Congress passed a law to protect them from lawsuits. Also, gun-related stocks are doing great today. This is America said. You can't sue gun manufacturers for when their product is... The liability protection is there, but it's not there on a even more general sense. They have liability protection, but there's a specific type of liability protection. I got to read back into it, but I know that really it's vaccinations and guns are the only things that are protected in some manner from liability. And vaccinations actually have a special vaccination court. For obvious policy reasons. There's no reason to have this for guns. None. Zero. Calling from a 330 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Richard calling from Ohio. How are you?
I'm well, Richard. How are you?
Well, listen, I got one short thing, one longer thing, and then one piece of arguably too ugly black humor. I'll just go with the short thing first. I haven't heard anybody mention the fact that after the shootings in Las Vegas, the first thing Trump did was tweet out that he was sending his warmest condolences. Now, maybe it's just me, but that is the weirdest thing I have. How can you send warm condolences? Oh, I'm feeling all happy and fuzzy. Sorry you're dead. I mean, that's just totally odd.
Yeah, he's an odd guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of sick. It's kind of like sending, happy regrets. So that was one. That was short. Two, not to change the subject entirely, but I want to tell you about something that I'm actually trying not to be scared of. And I realized this morning that none of you guys are old enough to remember the Pueblo incident in Korea in the 1960s, although I am. You might want to look it up at some point, but that was basically a situation where North Korea attacked, took over, and captured the crew of a U.S. Navy vessel, which was off North Korea, although allegedly in international waters. And eventually, after some negotiating and humbling by the U.S., released all their crew. But what I'm worried about is that with all of this BS that Trump is throwing their way on a regular basis, I for one, am not confident that that Kim is going to do anything sane. We're overflying the territory with jets. We're making lots of bellicose threats. I mean, all he needs to do is like, shoot at a U.S. ship or shoot at a Korean ship. Didn't they sink a South Korean vessel within the last 5 or 6 years? So, and in the old days, that would have been like horrible, and it would have been really problematic. But with Trump and his will drop fire and fury on you, I honestly think there's a real chance that something profoundly ugly could happen.
Richard, this is what the concern is that the more you ratchet up tensions, the less it takes for something to go wrong. I mean, there was I can't remember who it was. Maybe a former a military personnel who was formerly in South Korea or North Korea who said, I think we're at a 10% chance of some type of confrontation, nuclear confrontation. That's scary. Yeah. I mean, I think that is what people are worried about. I mean, it's one thing to say like, oh, he's just an idiot and a jerk for sparring with this guy. But the real problem is that people are concerned that this brinksmanship and the tension that you create has the ability to create mistakes on both sides. And mistakes in these situations are really dangerous. But I got to jump, Richard.
Yeah.
I appreciate the call.
Okay, let me say one more thing.
Yes.
No,
quick.
Let me say one more thing.
Quick.
Okay, great. You were suggesting that we have a website tracking the number of kills for different gun manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I was going to point out that the downside of that is that sooner or later, if you do that, people will start betting on it. Or even worse, if you're in the high end, people will start betting on it and call it a derivatives market and wager thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on whether Remington or Smith & Wesson gets more kills in any given year.
I think that
That's
actually might be helpful.
Wasn't
frankly.
there
Appreciate
actually an
the call.
idea in the Bush era that of doing a futures market on terrorist attacks? I think it was General, the same guy that was trying to do the TIPS program. Forget his name.
The DARPA guy?
Yes.
Poindexter.
Poindexter, yeah.
Calling from a 412 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Sean from Iowa.
Hey, Sean. We don't have too much time. I want to go through. We got literally 11 callers hanging out.
Just a couple quick facts, and then I can't understand the messaging behind some of this stuff. So an NFA Class 3 dealer can sell or buy a fully automatic weapon. So that process, you have to go through the ATF to maintain and obtain a Class 3 dealer. And then to obtain a suppressor currently, all you have to do is purchase a $200 tax stamp, fill out paperwork, and submit to the ATF. The problem that the gun industry is having right now with their suppressors, quote-unquote problem, right, is that they've done such a thorough job of defunding the ATF that now they're saying that it's so inefficient to do that. It takes you over a year to be able to purchase those, so now they're trying to legalize them. And what I can't understand is why this fatter, sicker, dumber, and unsafe messaging isn't combined into this, where you can watch a war movie, and in that war movie, less people die or are hurt than what happened last night in an American city.
Yeah.
And why? And I'm in Iowa. We just had a Terry Branstad who is now in China. I don't know if that's good or bad, but Terry Branstad, they passed a suppressor law here in Iowa on his way out, and a few months prior, he defunded the state mental health facilities. So why in our current political climate, where we understand what each side's arguments are going to be, right? As soon as these things happen, you know exactly what the other side, quote unquote, is going to say. Why is it that they're allowed to defund mental health facilities, and then a few months later, when there's a mass shooting, they say it's a mental health problem? Same thing as with, we just tried to vote 5 times to remove the ability for you to receive medical care to include health benefits, and we still don't accept responsibility that the policies that we're pursuing perpetuate the violence. And then, and I'm sorry to ramble on a little bit, but you just listed that armor-piercing bullets would be on that suppressor act or whatever they're calling it. Why is it that the left allows the right to say that they're pro-cop? Why is it that the left would allow armor-piercing bullets to be sold to people who the only opposition that would utilize armor-piercing bullets?
It's not just a question of the left allowing the right to do that. I mean, if the cops are so concerned about these armor-piercing bullets, they should stand up too. You know, I mean, that's the attempt. The attempt is made. I can assure you, Chuck Schumer's going to go on the Senate floor and say just exactly what you said. I know you can hear that in the House, but you got to have cops who go out there. You have cops who are not endorsing Donald Trump when he's telling people abuse your prisoners. I mean, but yes, your point stands.
I've been involved in I've been involved. Sorry, I know you got to jump, but it's an overall mental health problem. But then there's a culture being built around weapons that it's the American warrior way. It'd be interesting to have someone on that would be able to talk about that American warrior culture that's being built around gun ownership.
It's the gunfighter nation.
You can lubricate your weapons by liberal tears.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And it would be interesting to have the left point out that the policies being pursued by that American warrior culture are having real ramifications. Because I saw just a few minutes ago there was some expert saying that instead of it being an automatic weapon, it may have been a semi-automatic weapon with a mechanism built to make it fire on full auto.
Right. You can mod it.
ATF-approved item.
Right. Appreciate the call.
Not a mod.
Yeah. No, it's not a modification of the semi-automatic. There are like feeders. I don't know what else you call. Calling from a 937 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Got to be quick.
Okay, real quick. This is Sean from Ohio. I recommend that everyone look at Fox News after shit like this happens, like Fox News website more specifically. You see the very top, of course, the guy's a maniac because he's a white guy. And there's heroic stories of a guy covering his wife and being peppered with gunfire, and a veteran giving his account, of course. And then you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see Hillary Clinton. Hillary goes for guns. She's slammed for her ignorant statement on guns after the Las Vegas shooting. It's the same fucking playbook.
Yeah.
It's the same goddamn playbook. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't fucking believe it. You know, it's just people got to look out for this shit. Like they're going to say it. Oh, it's just a crazy guy. It's a crazy guy. Oh, look at these liberals trying to go after. They're politicizing it. Why are they doing this?
Yep.
You know what I mean? If only these people all had guns, they could fire in that direction.
Complaining about guns after a mass shooting is why Donald Trump won. All right, appreciate the call.
It is. It is. I know. It triggers me. Bye. All right. See ya.
Calling from an 817 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Rick. This is Rick.
Rick, what's on your mind? Got to be quick. Rick?
All the stuff that's going on is just nuts. You talk to these people, and they're like, you try to talk to them about guns, because I'm a former Marine. And you talk to these guys about these guns, and they're like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're fake valor and showing valor, whatever the shit. You're like, dude, you're over here trying to, I don't know how to use the word, but you're trying to advocate for other people that died. It's just bullshit, dude. And I'm with everybody else. I'm just tired of it. And, actually, it's suppressor, not silencer, Sam. You have a good day now.
Suppressor. Thank you. I appreciate that. You don't even know that it's called a suppressor, man, not a silencer. It's not silent. It just dissipates the sound.
Excuse me. That is not what freebasing is, Congressman. You with little knowledge of crack culture.
Oh, look at the size of the spoon you're using.
Did you see the display? We would never use a needle like that. These guys don't know what they're talking about.
Caller calling from 814 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. It's Greg from the North Coast.
Hey, Greg.
And it's a psionic suppressor. It's a psionic suppressor.
Oh,
Now, your cynicism the cynicism that we're sharing today and the sort of like frustration caused me to call Congressman Duncan's office and leave a voicemail in support of his bill, because after all, so many more Americans could have been ushered into the great beyond in that mass shooting if it had only been silencers, and they could have listened to that melodious music emanating from the stage. It would have been a much better way to slip their surly gates. And after all, we should not lose our hearing due to our fetishes and thereby turning ourselves into disabled individuals in the future who will become dependent on government health care in order to address our fetish. So, I'm just totally disgusted by this. I've lived in a gun culture for years. not being a fetish person myself, I understood hunting, but this has gone way beyond that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to recommend a book by Jeffrey Parrott, if people want to get into it. It's called A Country Made by War, and it basically outlines the history of the United States and our connection to war throughout the world, through colonization up to about the 1990s, I believe, expressing how our leaders have, the military leaders are on our money. Our statues include firearms everywhere across the country. It's a great book to understand that sort of pairing of gun culture and American militarism. And the last point is, people have to read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 by Hunter Thompson, because one of my favorite lines comes from that book, which is, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. And we see that pro in the Oval Office. So
yeah, indeed.
Thanks for helping
Appreciate
us, Sam.
Thanks,
you really make me feel like I'm not alone. Have
Thanks
a good day.
Right.
Oh, so some guy's crazy in Vegas, so all of a sudden Hunter should lose that hearing. Fucking liberal elites. It's a sonic ray sound. It's not even a silencer.
Leon Gettins. So now Monarch Airways has gone under as a direct result of Brexit. Bombardier are shedding 1,000 jobs in Northern Ireland again as a direct result of the disastrous Brexit deal. How much more warnings do our politicians need to abort the plan? Tories are pushing ahead regardless, whereas Labour are talking about a transition period, which will hopefully become permanent position. We remain in the single market and therefore accept free movement of people. British businesses are flocking to the Labour Party because they know the Conservatives are driving us off a cliff. The Tory Party conference is turning into a damp squid as opposed to the lively, energetic Labour Party conference. Leon of London. Doe Link. I do mindfulness meditation at least twice a day, more lately. Use low-dose cannabis several times a day. Still taking meds for ulcer prevention, daily migraine. Luckily, so far, I have Medicare. My anxiety level is through the roof. Cannot watch TV today. I'm white and 72. I can't imagine the stress, fear of people of color, even more than mine. No mention of the 5th podcast award win. Oh, yeah. We won.
Hey.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I you know what? I forgot.
Suck it.
I totally forgot. And
oh, my God. Well, I thought today was horrible, but now, Jesus.
Well, the way they did it this year was you have to pre-tape an acceptance award. So we pre-taped it like a month and a half ago. And I forgot when the award night was. And then I saw an email yesterday, and it just said, congratulations to our winners. It didn't say you won.
Congratulations. What's your social security number?
And I don't know what.
I wanted to. What was that?
I don't know.
I wanted to record a right-wing Mandela acceptance speech for the maybe next year.
Should have. I don't think we're eligible anymore.
We just won too many times.
5 times, I think we're done.
Literally, they're sick of us winning.
So much winning,
just
you're going to be sick of it.
So much winning that they've put a cap on it.
And then I clicked on the thing, and I was like, I gotta scroll down, and it was like in the middle of the night, and I forgot about it. And then I think I probably thought, like, oh, Monday as I go through the stuff. But this morning I came in, I was just so mad about everything. I didn't even.
That's amazing, because that used to be
we'll talk about
a much
tomorrow.
Bigger deal for us.
Well, 5th, I'm actually glad because I'm closing it out. We're not going to maybe we'll do another Webby. We won a Webby award last year, too.
I have to get rings for all 5 of our fingers.
Or a Webby, we didn't win. We were a Webby, like honoree or something. H. Martinez, I'm Mexican national. If I want to visit Mount Rushmore, I have to get a visa, which means I have to undergo security checks, get biometric scans, pay fees, and undergo interviews. Why won't the U.S. look at people who try to purchase assault weapons with the same caution in which they look at me? Looking online, I found some charts. On average, a silence looks like it takes off about 30 decibels. That doesn't sound much if you're not familiar with dB, but it's a logarithmic unit. 30 dB difference means it reduces the energy of the sound wave by about 1,000 times. There is something weird about how our country is making the case for another war against the country for acquiring more deadly weapons at the same time refusing to do anything about individuals in America acquiring deadly weapons. Why should I lose my hearing when I shoot up your family? Texas Lefty, you kind of brought it up earlier, but could you imagine if even a small percentage of the 20,000 Las Vegas festival goers last night had a gun? As soon as the gunshots went off, everyone who had a gun would fire their weapons and shoot anyone else who drew their gun, thinking they were the shooter. Death toll would have been in the several hundreds.
I actually bet that a fair amount of people there did have guns.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't draw them.
Because you can't. It's insane.
You can't, because you're in a real-life situation, and all that fantasy nonsense goes out the window. And thank God they didn't draw them.
Well, that one guy that Lepaco said was there that has like the jet set lifestyle. That's he's like he's sort of like a light alt-right guy, and he has gun pictures all over his Instagram, and of course he didn't pull out one of his guns. And those are the type of guns that guy probably had up with him in the room. To be honest,
precisely.
Negative space. Hey fam, I messaged this on Friday. WTF am I paying for if you don't read my stuff? Sam equals daddy. Michael equals bae. Matt equals kawaii. I don't know what any of that means.
I think you know what daddy means.
What does that mean?
Well, you're like dad. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, all right, but
Yeah.
I don't know what that means in the context of the like. I know what the word daddy means.
It's sort of internet language. Kawaii means cute, apparently.
Oh, and what is bae?
Bae's like a
Boyfriend?
shorter boyfriend type of thing. Yeah.
Oh, I see. All right.
All right.
SBG.
Okay.
Our non-response to Sandy Hook ensured that this will continue. That was the last chance we had to respond. It's over. Well, you know, the good news is we'll probably have another one where it's like 50 kids this time.
Do you remember there was an Onion piece that happened after Sandy Hook where the NRA outlined the precise conditions that would need to happen in order for there to be them to, support. I think they actually it was well enough written that it was also like for them to support a background check or something. It wasn't even like any type of actual package. And they were like, it was something effective like 900 children in a school, and that's 900 deaths. We're not counting injuries. And he just went into this like gruesome, grotesque detail. And they're like, they're doing all these stipulations, like, we're not talking about emotional fallout. We're not talking the kid can't walk anymore. That's 900 dead.
Full on death.
Period.
Jesus. I mean, it would be funnier if it wasn't so true. Shame that whole good guy with a gun idea falls apart when your shooter's 30 stories up and you forgot to bring your concealed carry sniper rifle to the concert. Indeed. Max from Maryland, what is the real reason Tom Price is out? I don't believe for 1 minute that it's because of the flights. I'm not suggesting he was running a prostitution ring out of HHS, where ordering a batch of Spanish flu vaccines is code for a dozen Latina women ICE rounded up and forced into prostitution. I don't think there's anything like that, but there's no way it's about the flights. Anyway, I think I'm being gaslit. My sociology professor has repeatedly said that Dennis Miller is a smart person. Can't tell if he says it to appear non-biased or if he actually believes this. Should I drop this class? I think you should raise your hand, honestly, Max, and say, like, can you be more explicit? Like, do you think he's still smart, or did you think he was smart? Or are you saying, like, smart as in, like, glib? I think Tom Price is out because, like, he was in there to destroy healthcare, and they can't seem to do it. And he's just a political liability now. It's not like the guy has any particular expertise. He's failed.
Trump was pretty honest about that one. He didn't like the optics.
Bad optics.
I mean, I think that's very honest about this. Like, if you're going to do petty corruption, you better either keep it quiet or it should personally benefit Trump as well.
Exactly.
Like, where's the upside for him?
Yeah.
In that?
Where's
He's
mine?
not on that plane.
First off, where's my taste? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Literally. That, I'm sure in the meeting, like, why don't you, where do I wet my beak? Like,
yeah.
Is there some subsidiary for some holding I have? Like, maybe Trump indirectly owns like an air fleet or
Ever
something.
since you've been out of Congress, you don't have good stock tips anymore. So
exactly.
Trashella, thank you, Sam. I'll miss the fun half as I'm off to tutor adults in math. I know that doesn't soothe your mood, but your shows have been good medicine for me today every day, especially since 2016 in November. Thanks. Joseph Ballin, I've become so numb to these shootings, but just like climate change, our stinking, rotten government won't do shit about it because they're getting money from the big donors. Prayers won't do shit for the dead in Las Vegas, Puerto Rico, CHIP program kids, etc. DMC, guys. Now, Joseph Ballin, interesting you brought up CHIP program. And, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. But you realize, Joseph Ballin, that even the evil Hillary Clinton would have made sure that CHIP was reauthorized.
So, but we do always have to remember that as utterly ludicrous as Joseph Ballin can be, and he often is, unfortunately, he voted for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, he did?
You remember that?
No,
Yep.
I don't remember that.
So
yeah, he's smarter than a lot of
the right way on that
right.
in a swing state.
DMC, guys, sorry to hear about such a catastrophe. Been surfing American cable news stations all day. It might be inappropriate on such a horrible day. Can I compliment you on your coverage? Insightful, informative, savage is exactly why I'm a member. Thanks all. Stay strong and pissed off. Calvin BW. Joe has Anna and Jenk from TYT on a few times, another progressive. He invites all kinds of people on his show. He also supported Bernie up until he lost the primary and then switched to Gary Johnson. Yeah, I know. He's a libertarian-ish. Danny.
Yeah. He can express reasonableness at times.
But he also launders the alt-right.
Yes. I mean, I think, and I do think he's gotten quite a bit worse. I would say when I first looked at that show, there was a lot of stupid ideas, but he basically did have a very broad range of people on, and it was not, I think it's now firmly in a certain camp.
Calling from a 770 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Poppy from Georgia.
What's on your mind? Got to be relatively quick.
All right, so I'd like you to look up Bumpski stocks. I believe it's a legal accessory that was used in the shooting.
Okay. Bumpski stocks. All right.
Yeah, and also.
And what is that? What is that? Just like what is it exactly? Is it just a like just
so
an
basically,
extended chamber for ammo?
No. So you need to learn this word if you want to sound smart to the but whatever people. A modern sporting rifle, which is a semi-automatic military weapon. For civilians. So it's basically the stock on the rifle slides, and it has this like false trigger you keep your finger on, and you like put pressure with your forearm to go forward, and when you fire the gun once, it bounces back, and you keep pushing forward, and basically the recoil makes the gun automatic, but more dangerous and ridiculous and inaccurate. And it's completely legal.
Jesus.
Never heard about that before. That's insane.
So wait, it's on the on the butt of the gun? Is that it?
Yeah, like the part that goes on your shoulder.
Yeah.
It's like the gun is on a rail on that. And it makes it really like the weapon fire kind of like in a disjunct kind of rhythm, like it was in the shooting. So from what I can tell, that was what was used in the shooting, and it's another thing the NRA.
It's a spring-loading effect there, almost in some way.
Yeah, basically, like there are videos on YouTube of people just using them in their backyard.
Yeah. I think I have a neighbor who might have that.
Yeah. Also, if you have like 20 grand, you can buy a like lower receiver for a firearm from pre-1986, and it's automatic, and you just build the modern parts from older type of assault rifle onto it, and it's just an automatic rifle, but it's like 20 grand.
Yeah, we're watching video now, this bump fire stock. And I can see what's going on there. It's almost like it's just recoiling into a sliding butt.
Yeah.
Wow. And it does appear to be at that point like, yeah. lots of fun. I bet you that guy had a lot of fun going out that way.
And another thing, it seems like you might not know this, but silences are legal, but it's a $200 tax stamp, and you have to wait like 6 to 13 months for
Right.
the
No,
NFA
you can get
form
them
to
in 42 states, I think, around the country, but you'd need to go through an extended background check, criminal background check, and waiting period.
Shouldn't that be having a gun anyway?
Yeah. Appreciate the call.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks. Knows a lot about guns. What does he know about taking heroin? Calling from a 603 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Matt from Bedford. I'm the moderate white that called in after the Charlottesville protests. And I just wanted to talk about that obviously, as a white man, we need to condemn this white extremism. But now new details have come out that he's probably connected with ISIS. And so I think we need to start looking past this political correctness and seeing if maybe all white men in America might be a danger, and whether we need to have a ban on white men entering the country.
I mean, it's important to ask these questions, isn't it?
I feel that way, in lieu of these things, 1 + 1 = 2. Last time I'm not a math major, but I was a math minor, but
Shut the fuck off our phones.
Yeah, I know. But I also, my second point is I didn't appreciate your sarcasm in terms of armor-piercing bullets, because let's just war game this out right now. Like some liberal puts body armor, or maybe even like a radical Islamic terrorist puts body armor on a bear and just lets him loose through the town. Now, like, how are we gonna stop this bear? And you guys are, basically just want to take away people's freedom. And I don't understand.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. I mean, I wish that's an interesting thought experiment that you're handing us. I wish I could push back on that. But it's important for moderate whites like yourself to speak up, and I appreciate that. And we will duly note it. Only one, though, out of the entire country has called in.
Speaking of moderate whites, Kurt Schilling was down in Puerto Rico, and he was able to confirm that it is not President Trump's fault that this isn't going well, and that it's probably more of like the brown people that are there that are at fault, and not any of the white people involved.
Oh, thank God. Thank God for Kurt Schilling. I appreciate that. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, no problem.
People say that we don't have moderate whites who call into the show.
White people do a great job.
Oh, here it is. Here it is already. Why the debate over gun suppressors isn't really relevant to what happened in Las Vegas. You got to be kidding me. Let's hear. Oh, give me a break. So dumb. So dumb. Do we know anything about Stephen Paddock? He's not actually
I haven't seen that.
I have no idea.
Not actually involved with ISIS in any way.
Oh no, but there's that guy Roger Spencer, I want to say his name is, who's like
ISIS did claim responsibility for the shooting.
But I think that the FBI has debunked the notion that he was an ISIS operative.
Yeah, I first saw that reported with a amount of skepticism.
Yeah, there's a big asterisk next.
Listen, we should be listening to the terrorists. Where did my callers go? Okay, calling from a 917 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Paul calling from Queens.
Hi, Paul. What's on your mind?
I guess there's a couple things. One is about the shooting and the gun culture. I think one big thing that, obviously the gun control is a big thing, but economic inequality is something that we just don't talk about in all this. Like, Finland and Switzerland have high rates of gun ownership, but low rates of crime. It's just, that's just a huge thing that we just don't even talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that may be, I mean, I think that's a factor. It's not a factor in this instance. I don't anticipate it being a factor. I mean, you could say that economic inequality sort of dements our society in some fashion, I suppose. But when you're talking about these mass killings, I'm not sure I know what the connection is.
Well, part of it, there's a book out called Spirit Level, a really good book about economic inequality, and it goes into a lot of things. I think the basic thesis of the authors is basically that, like, there's so much stress created by economic inequality. There's like lower levels of trust. People live, shorter lives. We're fatter. We're more overweight. We're more medicated. Like, we're more in prison. There's higher rates of homicide. All these things are just directly correlated with economic inequality. And so it's like, I don't know the exact mechanism, but it has a lot to do with kind of like our emotional life and all this, of kind of like how do, the stress levels are high and there's low mental health services. It's all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. All right, I'll look into it. I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
All right, we have time for 2 more calls. So if you have not been on the phone for longer than 40 minutes, I will not get to you. Calling from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I made it. This is Chris from Pennsylvania.
Chris, what's on your mind?
And I bugged Michael on Twitter. I'm a huge tiny mistake. So
you're a huge what?
I wanted to call about huge tiny mistake.
Oh, you're
from
a huge
Arrested Development.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool. Hey.
Yeah. Hey. Before this gun thing, I wanted, which is horrible, but I wanted to call about Janus v. Absney.
Yes.
And was wondering if you had heard about it or
Yes.
if you were planning on getting anybody on.
Yes. Yes to all those things. I mentioned it the other day on the show. It will be heard. Janus v. AFSCME is a case that is basically the second Friedrich case. Friedrich's, of course, was that California case where a teacher did not want to pay the agency fee for their union. Right now, as it is, you cannot be forced to join a union. However, if you are working in a union shop, and when you're talking about public sector unions, that, municipalities, whatnot, departments of education, et cetera, want to negotiate with one partner. And so they basically make it a closed shop, got to join the union, and courts have found, as of Abood v. Detroit in like 1970-something, I can't remember when, 77, that you are responsible for paying agency fees, covering, some portion of lawyers and whatnot. Can't be used for political or activism or anything like that, just for agency fees. And this case has come back up. Yes, no, I've gone off on it last week, but we'll talk about it in the coming days. I'm going to get somebody on to talk about all those cases. But yes, I've heard about it. We're going to be on top of it. It's a effing disaster. And F Jimmy Dore. All right, appreciate the call.
Yeah.
All right, final call of the
that
day.
Was coming.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way. I mean, there's no way with the cases are going to come down in the Supreme Court this year. There's no way that I'm going to be able to let go of it. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. You call from an 858 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from California. It's Anthony.
Anthony, what's on your mind? You're the final caller of the day, Anthony.
All right. Then I want to make this quick. I have a couple comments, suggestion, and then a talking point. So first I wanted to mention that Rogan actually rode the MMA hype train. That's how he got big, and he just kind of banked off of that.
Yep.
And then also I wanted to suggest that you guys should definitely have, like, once a week person on that kind of like either like Ben Shapiro or alt-right high-profile names, or somebody from academic with opposing views, because I think if you stay policy-specific, and, don't get too emotional or appeal to pathos or morality, because clearly they pick and choose, like abortion and gun control, whether or not they want to legislate morality. But I think that could really do a lot for, maybe having that dialogue with people and not just kind of, staying consistent with that polarization. And then, just focus on policy, because I feel like a lot of the people on the right, especially, high profilers, they don't stick to policy. They talk about like kind of just the mainstream media garbage. And then also, I hope Ronald Reagan is actually vegan, because he was talking about hunting culture when mass production of animals is actually 1,000 times more fucking disgusting.
Right.
But yeah.
All right.
And then I guess as far as gun policy goes, I'm a gun owner. I go backpacking a lot, and as far as use for protection, if a bear comes on me in the woods, my survival instinct, I would prefer to have a gun than not. If the whistles and bear mace doesn't work, it's always nice to have it. But I think there needs to be some serious regulations. I think, being in California, we have some of the strictest regulations. I don't think we would see a tightening of the federal regulations, but I kind of want to see what your thoughts were on that. Like, I don't know.
What are your thoughts on what? Should you take a gun out there to fight a bear? Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Take on the fucking bear.
No, I'm saying
finally a non-pussy call for once.
Well, I'm saying as far as like the gun regulations, like California really wouldn't notice a difference, right? We have some of the strictest regulations in the country.
You should
right?
have
like,
Ben Shapiro on to talk about whether Hamilton is music or not.
Reciprocity. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically make your gun laws subject to whoever comes in. So if I buy my gun in Nevada, I come in, I may have to operate with my gun under your laws, but I can do things that my gun is legal because I'm in California, from Nevada.
Well, wouldn't a sweeping federal legislation or bill kind of hold other states to a higher, or I guess a higher criteria for gun ownership and some of those regulations?
Yeah, federal law would. I'm not sure I know what you're asking. Do I think there should be greater federal gun control or gun regulation? Yes.
Right, because they leave it up to the state too much, I believe.
Well, yeah, because
like
but they do that. They leave it up to
the
the state because the feds won't pass any type of gun regulation. Appreciate the call.
Liberals want you to be eaten by fucking bears. You heard it here first.
Bear eating. All right, that was the final call of the
I never want Ben Shapiro on this show, by the way.
Yeah, no.
I vote against. I think dialogue is useless.
They don't want to debate policy.
Yeah, they stick the policy, like what the circumference should be of new concentration camps.
I hope people know me well enough that I am not when I have people like that on, it's not a function of I think I'm going to convince this person or any type of dialogue. It is to show where there are flaws in their arguments so that other people can go out and have arguments with their sort of spawn. All right, we're going to do 10 more IMs and then get out of here. Fidel cash flow. I don't think anyone truly appreciates how hard it is to be a right-wing terrorist. You give up your life, liberty, and freedom just to see your heroes on InfoWars call it a Clinton-backed false flag. Also, the only 72 virgins you get is in your all-male Ivy League fascist book club. Scrumpy style. There's no way the paleo diet would kill you, as caller claims. It's just eliminating processed food and grains. All necessary nutrients are still included in the diet. Finland and Switzerland also have conscription in a form of home guard. Goes a long way to explain both gun ownership and low crime, more than economics. Scott M., thanks for helping us vent this morning. I was one of the people who was able to vote in the podcast awards, and I was happy to see the results this week, and keep it up. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate that. Yeah, that's what happened. It became so confusing. I didn't know how it worked. But I appreciate it.
Like an award that they don't really want to be that sort of like public about.
It was very opaque, the whole process. Pedal, don't know if you mentioned on the show today, but the planned Nazi march here in Gothenburg this weekend was a total cuckfest. They never even made it to the starting point of the march. We were 20,000 counter-protesters. The vast majority of us never even saw a single Nazi. They all get stuck in the parking lot somewhere in the distance. Sad. Let's see if you can find any stories on that for tomorrow. Ducks for hire. Democrats need to create intensity around gun control. I read an article in Hill a while ago about how basically Democrats have given up after the sit-in and all that didn't really work. They need to do what Republicans do and never shut up about it. Why do you want to let people die? Well, it's not the Democratic politicians. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the people who are anti-gun, who are voters, are just not as intense about it. Comrade Jeb, any chance of getting Mark Blythe on back on the show? Yeah.
He's quite.
Didn't we go
amenable.
out to him a while back?
He's just hard to book. Not like he wants to be on, but he is somebody who genuinely has like a very convoluted schedule. But that'll happen.
Anthony from Baltimore. Dude, totally on topic. I told an advisor at my graduate program I listened to a few podcasts. And he asked me if I liked the Waking Up podcast by Sam Harris. Oh. I literally replied with, I can't fucking stand that dude, without even thinking. Awkward fucking silence ensued. Swear to God, I wonder if Sam Harris will put together another article called The Riddle of the Gun now that the right-winger who aligns with his positions is in office. The answer is nope. Another problem with Sam Harris is that he makes arguments about free will and morality that many mainstream academic philosophers and neuroscientists have already articulated, and he tries to leverage that stolen credibility from actual scholars in order to make his dumb, problematic arguments about Islam seem legitimate. He's a charlatan indeed. Indeed. Ronnie Raygunt. I'd say there's a 95% chance from John from San Antonio's. What? I can't follow that. Wormtown Lefty. Yes. From Worcester. The way citizens of Central and South America feel about the drug cartels is how Americans should feel about the NRA. Disco Stew. I remember when Sandy Hook happened, showing up to work on a college campus and the entire place was somber. Clearly in shock. Today I arrived and folks were carrying on as usual. Students didn't seem to notice or display any serious effect. I asked a colleague and she said, yeah, crazy. Went back to typing. Didn't seem to grasp or be bothered by the sheer scale of the slaughter. We have failed. This is normalized and it's too late. Nothing will be done. You may be right.
We need to act as if that's not right.
Nick from Manitoba. Hey, Sam, Michael, and Matt. Thanks for doing the show during times like theirs. It's clear how hard it is. But I think other listeners greatly appreciate your guys' voice right now, so thank you. On a lighter note, if I might say, speaking of Sam Harris, I've really begun to use a bad situationist as a template to understand Harris. I think it's quite fitting. Lastly, you mentioned the lack of equivalent left presence on YouTube. That has me thinking. There are a lot of informed, smart listeners for your show, and I'm sure they have the knowledge to do YouTube videos, but perhaps don't have the resources or technical know-how, or being cucks, don't have the confidence. Would there be value in Matt or something doing a workshop to provide listeners with the know-how and means? Yeah, I mean, I've been starting to think about something, setting up something like that. But Social Security on Kaepernick, it's bullshit what the caller brought up about him not being good enough to play. I'm a Bears fan. Cutler's unspeakably bad, yet he was signed by the Dolphins.
That's the thing is I'm barely following football, and I know one of the main storylines is how bad quarterbacking is. So, I mean, if the game's changed, it's changed for every single quarterback.
No one's saying that he's like the best player out. Everybody's basically saying he's like middling level, which should mean that he's on the field or higher, at the very least on a bench.
Umar Shami, Sam, your son is almost 5. Any light at the end of the non-gaming tunnel? I'd say I'm probably about a year and a half away. You should get Witness. It's a puzzle solver with a narrative. Does not require reflexes. Got it for iPhone and iPad. What do you mean? I get a problem with my reflexes? And the final IM of the day, Alabama Progressive. I remember reading somewhere that the most painful way to die is being in a free-falling elevator in a very tall building. Thank you for that. All right, folks. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding